welcome to Through the Eyes of Survivors, the podcast that deals with issues for survivors of domestic violence and how we can break the stigma in society. I'm Tara Woodlee, president of Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence, and I have a special treat with this episode. We are going to be talking about relationships. So I've brought my husband, Jim Woodlee, in with me. And also joining us today is Amanda Johnson. She is our volunteer director, also community organizer over at Break the Silence, and her husband, Gary. So it's wonderful to see y'all.
Wonderful to be here. I like being on this side of the camera.
Thank you for having
me. So we thought we would talk about a little bit for, we know when we hold our sister survivor retreats, we end up talking a little bit about the new relationships and some of the troubles people have had or are currently having in their new relationships after they've been through an abusive relationship. So I thought we'd kind of delve into that just a little bit for our topic today and what it's like for the men who come into these relationships after so much trauma with not only the wives and children and what that's like and how we can more effectively communicate with one another because there's so many survivors out there going through that type of thing. I know when we got married, I had been out on my own with 2 children doing our thing for a little while as a single mom. So, but I had both girls. So, a healthy male relationship was not a part of the equation at all for many years. And so our dating life was kind of a little touch and go there for a little bit with the girls. Yeah. What did you think when you first came into it?
Oh, the girls were wonderful, and from the day one they loved me. That was obvious, but they had boundaries. They had these, no, mama is the authority, you're just here. And you can be friends, but don't cross that line and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember the oldest one, Rachel, was very like, I want to know where you're going, what time you're going to be back. Yeah. Give me the phone number of the places you're going to be. Are you going to call if you go somewhere else?
What time are you? They actually asked me, what time are you going to have her home?
Yeah, it was very strange to have your
well, they were young teenagers.
Yeah, 15-year-old kind of doing that, but. Yeah. She was very protective back then. What did you guys experience when you first started dating, coming into a relationship?
Well, when I first experienced everything, I mean, when me and Amanda met, we talked a lot on the phone because I was always on the road. And then, it got to the point where I said, enough's enough. When can we go on a date together? And it was about 3.5 weeks. And then finally she said, okay, I'll take and make some time. And we knew that right away we were going to have to deal with a little bit more because of the fact she had 3 children. And I knew that it wasn't going to be easy, but I didn't know how hard it was going to be either. So when we went on our first date, everything went great. She's an amazing woman. And I'm like thinking to myself, this one is definitely going to come to me. So after that was made up, we planned for our second date, and she said, well, Gary, I hate to disappoint you, but we're not going to be able to make it this time. I said, well, why not? And she said, well, I can't find anybody to watch the kids. I told her, I said, you know what, Amanda, the first thing to accept in a relationship, especially one that has children involved, you got to accept the whole package. Mm-hmm. So what we decided was there was a carnival and we took all 3 kids with us. It was a little bit rough because I knew that the kids loved their dad and they were going to have a harder time trying to trust this new strange man in their lives. And honestly, it wasn't that bad with my son and my middle-aged daughter, but my oldest daughter, it was a little bit more challenging. She had tried everything to get me to leave. And it came down to me ruining a Garth Brooks song and telling her, no matter what, I am not going anywhere because this is the woman of my dreams. This is the woman I want to be with. And I love you, children. And I said, you're just going to have to deal with it because I'm not going to. And then finally, after a couple dates, I mean, I do have to say, with me getting the children more interactive with our dates, because I had to be more optimistic at the fact that it's just not Amanda. It's Amanda and the three kids. So I had to make them apart. And once I began making them more apart, that's when me and Layla started developing a very good bond as father and daughter. And, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was the most longest and hardest thing I had to do as far as building up trust with all three children. But if I were to go back today and say that I wanted to change it, no, I wouldn't take it any other way.
No, that's awesome. And Amanda, what kind of things did you experience as far as like maybe in the beginning when you were dating Gary that was kind of some baggage you may have been holding on to?
It definitely was like hard to trust certain things and know like, is this man too good to be true? Because I've heard, all these things of, I would do this and I don't believe in this. And so he just was like hitting all my check boxes, like crossing them off so fast. But at the same time, I had to think for three children. And as you said, like when you have that one child that's like, where are you going? Who are you talking to?
Yes.
I would always try to keep boundaries where I would speak to him after they went to sleep. But there would always be my oldest, like quietly going to the bathroom and taking 20 minutes in the bathroom, while you're on the phone. So it was very hard too at that time because you're trying to think for yourself, but at the same time, you have three children. So you're caught in between your emotions and what's best for those children at the same time. But when I saw that he was actively taking the time to engage the kids and add them and wasn't like, okay, I'll go out with you when you can find someone, or okay, just call me when you have more time because I find that, or certain things. Then I was like, okay, he's just not in this 100%, for me and him. This is a whole package. And he reminded me of that every time we would talk about things. He's like, I'm aware that it's not just you. So that did help at the beginning. But there was a lot of hangups too, because when you have that bond with your children and you have someone coming in and you're like trying to figure out the comfortable of parenting, even when you're dating, like, and you have someone else around your children, and my children were young, so when you guys have your routines and your that bond, your children definitely like, okay, as Jim said, you could be a friend, but you need to go home at some point. The mom's still authority, and she, and I'm, you're cool, but me, like, go home at some point, and we dealt with that for a very long time, but we had kind of break that.
Oh yeah, it wasn't easy at the beginning. I know the girls really loved him, but they challenged him in a lot of ways because it was very like, it really was like that. They would say it. We were like the Three Musketeers kind of thing, and then all of a sudden he's coming in like wanting to join the club, right? And you're like, yeah.
Well, then they had been through. We don't think about what these kids have gone through in these abusive relationships. These kids Rachel and Ashley had been through so much. So they're testing me here and they're testing me there. They want to see how I'm going to react. Ashley, the youngest one, she would actually test me to the point that she knew it should have made me mad just to see how I would react.
To see how bad mad would be.
Yeah. She wanted to know how bad it could get.
Well, she was kind of like her mama in that way, because I did that a bit too in our dating life.
Right.
And the fear of our marriage real bad too. I did. I tested those waters. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I don't blame them. Her and all the girls are like 5'2", and I'm 6'2", and I'm walking into this house, and you've got these two teenage girls, but they're still kids. They think they're grown at that age, but they're kids. And I'm stepping in there and being me. I mean, I guess since I was in my early 20s, I've been the same with kids. Kid will walk up. I mean, you can ask her, even at the dance stuff with my granddaughter. I have little girls I don't even know doing something wrong, and I'll walk up and say, "Hey, don't do that," and they just don't. I don't know why, but they listen to me.
Yeah.
So
It's because
you
you're
know,
6'2".
Yeah, probably.
because one,
You're 6'2".
but and then they'll run up and start joking and kidding with me and stuff. I mean, it's not like they're scared of me.
No.
It's just that authority in your voice when you're talking. Uh, I have noticed throughout my life that ability to project authority is really a male thing in some ways, not in all ways, but in some ways. Uh, it works no matter where you are, but it's a great responsibility because if you misuse it with your own children, and that's the place it can be misused the very most. If you misuse it with your own children, you dissolve trust, and you've got to be very cautious. My girls, that not only would they test me, then they would turn around and it's almost like they were doing these little tests, and then you get a reward for the test. Okay, we tested you, you passed this test, so for the next half a day we're going to be really good.
Just half, not a full day, half a day.
Half a day.
Uh-huh.
Half a day.
And I used to always have to tell them, hey, this is what a real father acts like.
Yep.
Because they didn't get that.
No.
And with their biological father, I'm like, this is what a real father acts like, and they didn't have any kind of a reference for that. I don't think the stability was there. Like I at least had a reference with my grandfather growing up, that stable male role model figure, and they didn't have that. So,
and once we first got married, then you get into the whole deal of, oh, he's in the home all the time. Even though they moved in with me, wherever mama was, that's their home. And I was the intruder, because now I'm there all the time. And if they asked me something and I said no, and then they would go directly to their mama and ask her. And if she thought, well, it wouldn't have been that bad a deal to say yes, instead of just changing it like some ladies do in relationships, she would tell the girls, go back and talk to him and give him 3 days to think about it. Because she knew me well enough to know that that's how.
Actually, most men in general, if you get reasonable, responsible adult males, if you that's always good advice I give any young ladies going into a marriage. If you can give your husband 3 days to think about what you said, if he sits down, really listens to you and stuff, usually they come to the conclusion of, we do this a lot. He'll go, that mattered to her more than it did me. So what does it matter if we do it the way she wanted to, or if I concede and let this happen? Because he showed me that respect, then I started respecting him on that level as well. Well, did that really matter to me? Kind of thing. And if not, then what was it going to hurt to do a particular thing his way or do the way he wanted? But that was something that was hard to do because I was very reactive in the first part of our marriage. I mean, severely reactive.
But you have to get to the point to where with the children and with your spouse, you have to get to the point that you recognize triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that's ever been through anything bad has triggers. We didn't used to call them triggers. I used to call them baggage, but it's triggers. It's things that key old responses, that old fight or flight response that comes in. That's all it is. It's triggering those. What do I do in this situation? I don't know if you experience this as a man with the kids coming in, but I was fortunate into having the girls. When I asked their mama to marry me, I went and asked the girls for their permission to marry her and told them point blank, and I was serious. If they said no, I would not marry her. One of the stipulations on that is I couldn't be a part of the family halfway. They didn't have to call me daddy or anything like that. But if they said yes and I married their mama, then as far as in my heart, they were my little girls. They weren't step anything. They were mine and would always be mine.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, you know. And I don't know if you had those same characteristics or if you had to fight that battle only into marriage, but
Well, I mean, when it came to the time where I was going to engage to Amanda, I talked to all three kids, and it was a hard secret for us all to keep. And the biggest thing was I really didn't have to say much. It was an instant yes because it was like one of those things where okay, this guy, we all love him. We care about him. The way that they were trying to push me away at the beginning and to where it got further in, and they really changed their characteristics and the way they looked at me as a human being. And when I asked them that day if they were okay with me marrying their mom, and they, like I said, they didn't have to bat an eye. They were just very happy and overjoyed. And, Layla told me, she said, whatever you do, don't break her heart. With that being said, I mean, they were happy, they were overjoyed. I knew that, Layla, she's the oldest one too. And minding everything, our son, he saw the least amount of stuff. And with our two oldest daughters, they're the ones that saw the majority of the trauma and everything that went on in the household at the time years ago before I was introduced. And the thing of it was, I needed to respect those boundaries of them. And I've even told Amanda, I said, same as Jim, I told Amanda, I looked her dead square in the eye, and she said, what do the kids think about this? Because when I proposed to her, she was happy, but she was also concerned because she was very, very concerned about what the well being of the children find. And I told her, I said, Amanda, I love you. I'm going to be with you the rest of my life. And I am never going to ask those kids or manipulate those kids or have those kids call me dad. They want to call me dad. They want to call me Gary. They'll call me late for dinner. That's one thing that I don't want to be called. But the biggest thing is, regardless, I was going to love them as my own. And to me, to this day, they are my babies. And I will do anything in the world to protect my babies. And whether they call me dad or call me Gary, it's the fact that they respect me as a human being and they respect my relationship and marriage with my wife and understand that I love them regardless, whether they call me dad. And, it's just giving them that security that they're not forced upon anything. This is all their choice and how they feel and their comfort level. That was the biggest thing. And I think that's what they like the most about me is the fact that I was unbiased. I wasn't pushing anything on anybody. I was very mutual with what I was doing. And I think that they really had a great amount of respect for me because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, even with their dad, you showed respect. Even with their relationship with their father, like you didn't come in and say you'll never speak to this man again or anything. You allowed it to be as you monitored.
And as I say before, when you go into a marriage of somebody who survived domestic violence, and you got to be mindful of the fact that it wasn't only your wife that went through this, this was her children, and they've saw a lot of things, and it's just knowing that you got to be very calm with everything and let them know. I let Amanda know from day one. I said that is the kid's father. I said if you do not wish to speak with him, I will handle it. I said, but regardless, I grew up out of a bad marriage of my parents, and they were horrible to me, and it was like I was able to really relate to children because I survived child abuse and I survived other many different obstacles in life, and having that and given that, I was able to be on the outside and look in and see how the children were feeling and be able to relate to them in ways that nobody else could, because it's like I tell Amanda, when you have two different traumas, you both survive trauma but you survive them in a different way, and it's hard to relate that because of that. But when you have two people that survive trauma in the same aspect, child abuse, it was easier for me to talk to the children about it and, let them know that everything's going to be okay. And, I had to, from square one, Layla was so worried about her two dads meeting each other. And it's like I told Layla, I said, it's okay. It's okay. I said, that's your dad. And I said, I'm never going to take your dad from you. I said, if you choose to not be in contact with your dad, that is your choice. I said, I came from a family where they manipulated me. They tried to turn me against one another. And I said, that is not what I'm going to do here. I said, that is your daddy. And if you choose not to talk to him, then that's your choice. But I'm never going to keep you from him.
We had already hit the stage where my ex wasn't coming around with the kids. So we didn't have that issue really.
No, Ashley even said one of the stipulations on me marrying her mama is that one, I would never hurt her, and two, I'd never let her biological daddy around her again.
Yeah, and that's because we had an abusive incident with him when him and I were divorcing, where he had hurt her. So that's why they didn't go with him anymore. She really did not want to see him ever again. So, but yeah. So, what about when you first got married, like Amanda? How was that like a big change for you when like Gary first, like when you started living together for you, not the children, but you? What were the things that were kind of hitting you emotionally, maybe triggering you at the first part of your marriage?
I have to say communication of like you're so used to being a single mom, so you have all this like not need for anyone else to help you with things, and then when you're a husband and wife, you become a team. But like I was kind of in that single woman mentality where I would do things and not ask, and then he'd be like, "Let me help you," but then I would be like, "No," but then I'd be triggered that he wasn't helping me. So I kind of had to like I was making my own kind of cycle where I was getting upset because he wasn't helping me. But then when he would try to help, I'm like, I got this, because I would get yelled at for asked for help for things, or it would get
Mhm.
pushed off, where I would just get so upset. It would blow into a fight where, things would be sitting on the ground for days and you'd be like, are you going to pick that up? And it would turn into a World War III. So for me, I had a hard time at the beginning of our marriage, even just living together, like communicating, like, hey, can you help me with this? Can you do this? Can you do? Because I was afraid. Not that we ever had those issues. It was just the communication I was afraid of having.
And the biggest part of it was, you know, and this is the thing that not many people think about, but so with her ex, he was a tow truck driver. And he was a tow truck driver and he was doing everything that he was not supposed to do in a relationship behind her back while he was saying that he was working. Now,
Mhm.
what made this very challenging for me and Amanda is I was a tow truck driver and still am as of right now. And the biggest challenge with that is Amanda's always constantly going through her head because she knew that there's something wrong. Um, I wear I used to. I can't anymore because they hurt my toes. But I used to wear steel toe boots, and when I would take and forget something in the house, I come walking back in, just the footsteps, and it wasn't even the fact I wasn't like stomping. I was just walking normally, but because they were steel toe boots, they made a little bit louder of a noise across the. I would walk back to the bedroom. I would get my wallet, whatever it was I forgot. As always, I forget something, but walk back there and she would just be shaking and I would have to let her know, hey, you know what? Everything's okay. I get it. I get it. I understand why you're shaking. At that moment, I would have to take and figure out what was causing her to react. Because when Amanda would take and have triggers, as Jim put it, the trigger sometimes when an abuse victim goes through that, sometimes the number one thing in their defenses is they just as I call it, locking up. They don't speak. They get shaky. They get to the point where like if you go in, you gotta go in real slow because they're at that point, they're in fight or flight mode, as Jim put it. And just letting her know and taking my time going towards her and letting her know, hey, I'm not going to hurt you. Hey, I forgot my wallet. I had to come back in and get my wallet. There's been many nights where I would call her every hour and let her know, hey, babe, I got to pick up this call. I'm going to be a little late tonight. I'm probably not going to get in until 3 o'clock in the morning, but if you want me to, I'll wake you up when I get home just to let you
Mhm.
know I'm home safe. And it's the constant fact that, is he out cheating? Is he going to come home? What is he doing behind my back? Does he talk about me? Does he love me? There was a lot of things that ran through her brain when we first met, and it caused a lot of different challenges. And I just had to keep reassuring her that everything was going to be okay because it's like I told Amanda, being a victim of child abuse, you get through it, but you never forget about it. And you're always going to have those triggers. I mean, they get easier as you go along because of the fact you have communication with your partner. You're able to, navigate your way through everything and understand each other. And it's just the biggest thing I learned in this marriage and everything else from the beginning, and even in the relationship. The communication was the most important ingredient to being successful with a relationship because you have two people coming from two bad situations and you got to be able to take and understand each other because there's many times where I would call it as I would ping off of Amanda, so her triggers would trigger me,
Mhm.
and my triggers would trigger her. If it was something like if I had a little bit of ice cream on my face and she would go to reach me, I'd pull away, and that's
Right.
just because of my triggers and my trauma. So I had to begin to explain to Amanda, it's like, okay, this is why you got to do this. And honestly, after I developed trust with Amanda and I got closer with Amanda, it got easier for me. And that was where me and Amanda had to be real with everything. And we had to understand what triggered each other. And it's like I watch her every day and I try to watch for body language because I notice when, she has a trigger, it's a completely different body language than a normal one. It's like a switch that flips. And, understanding that she's not getting upset at me, she's upset at the situation or the fact that she's crying because of a situation, not because she's crying at me. She's seeing an image, a shadow of something that previous in her life, but she's placing it with my body language. And the biggest thing is just letting her know, talking her through it, and just letting her know I'm not here to hurt her. And it has been a big challenge, but honestly, it has brought us closer together as a couple, as a married couple. We're able to get through things a lot better now. I mean, the 7 years of being together, we have really came a long way. And it's just like she said, the general communication, understanding each other's situation, and understanding how to get through it. When I get argumentative with my wife, worst thing ever, but I walk out of the house, I gotta have that 15, 20 minutes to calm down, and then I come back and we talk through. Now, I do it that way because my dad never walked away when he got angry with my mom. And that led to worse things. And I told Amanda, sometimes everybody needs that time to breathe. What's good for me is not good for Amanda, and I'll explain why. Every time he got upset and angry with her, his other resort and his only option was he just stormed out the door. He didn't come home. He didn't do anything special. And, that was her biggest fear. And when she started learning, okay, he's got to walk away for 15 minutes. This is how he deals with things. This is how he gets right, gets himself calmed down. We come back, we talk through it like we're adults. He's not going to leave me. He's not going to take and go over to some girl's house. He just went out to his truck. He's going to calm down and he's going to come right back in. And,
Mhm.
after doing that, I mean, honestly, when we began to learn each other's triggers, and that was the biggest, hardest challenge for us because we ball pinged off of each other all the time.
Mhm.
And there was some times where it would be so bad that we wouldn't talk for 20, 30 minutes. And then I come out in the kitchen and I was like, what exactly are we arguing about? And Amanda's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Garrett, I don't know. It was a trigger. You triggered me, and I triggered you, and it was like a festival of triggers. But once we quiet down and we talk about it, and it's like I told Amanda, when somebody reacts, it's not because they're being angry. It's the fight or flight mode, and sometimes it can be misinterpreted as the person being violent when that person's not being violent. As the person saying, "Okay, I'm scared. I need to get walk through this and talk through this the right way." And honestly, Tara, I mean, it's all been a learning experience for all of us. And just at where we've been, and where we are now, it's amazing.
It sounds like what he said was that basically, when you're in a relationship that has those triggers, you have to enter them with patience, empathy, and trust, which all of those things lead to healing, and it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I agree with you on that 100%.
Yeah, well, we had similar.
We had some crazy stuff.
Yeah, he had baggage from a first marriage too, and you. So, like, the first year of marriage was kind of, definitely, was
our first big fight.
Oh yeah, the first big fight, he blew me away with that one. So,
well, she was so cute. She's this little bitty tiny thing. And she's walked right up in front of me, and she's so mad. And I'm
that old school. Sorry, Generation X. It comes out. My grandfather taught me to never be intimidated by a man. So even when I was in an abusive relationship, I'd be like, no, you're not going to intimidate me.
Arms just taking it. She's looking straight up at me. Like, she was so cute, I couldn't help it. I just picked her up and kissed her.
Yeah, he goes, "You're so cute," and he kissed me, and I was like, "What? I'm not trying to be cute."
And I don't. From that point on, I don't remember what that argument was about.
I don't either. But I know I had for me, whenever I got triggered, because the first marriage was so bad and he would never leave me alone. He would follow me from room to room and he wouldn't let things go. Every time we got into an argument during that first year, I bolted. I'd tell the kids, "Get in the car, we're going. I don't have to put up with this. You know what?" Get in the car. And I'd drive off for a little bit and calm down, and the kids would be like, "Mom, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I need to go home." But it didn't stop until one time it was bad. I forget what we were arguing about. I pulled out a suitcase. I was throwing stuff in the suitcase. I'm out of here. I am done. And then all of a sudden he pulls out an even bigger suitcase and sits it on the bed. I'm like, "Oh no, he did not. I'm the one who's leaving here, not him. What does he think he's doing?" I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he told me, "You go ahead. You tell him what."
I said, "If you want to go, then let's go. But hold on a second so I can get the rest of my stuff together, because I'm going with you."
And that's what he said. And I was
I love that.
Yeah, I'm going with you. And it really, it put me in a, hello, wake up. What am I doing? I'm the one who's creating this because of my old trauma. And I didn't do it ever again since.
But you got to understand, I never viewed her as this. People want to think of women that have been through abuse relationship or these little weak women that'll just take whatever's good. Not her. From the whole time I've known her, she's tough. She's intelligent. She'll stand and fight a moose in the middle of the road if he don't get out of her way when she tells him to. There's nothing weak or anything like that about her. But I don't know if it was when we were dating or just after we got married, but we're in my pickup one time driving down the road heading somewhere, and we're talking back and forth and laughing and having a good time. And I said something picking at her, and she reached over and popped me in the shoulder like that. not even hard.
We were dating, yeah.
And all of a sudden, I felt this, you know how you can just feel something not right? And I look over, and she's all the way over against the passenger side door, almost curled up in a little ball, looking, waiting, expecting to get hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it broke my heart.
Yeah,
You know?
and that was a part of my trauma that was really hard to deal with, because I grew up with twin male cousins that we were always,
Right.
wrestling and hitting each other in the shoulder and doing all that kind of stuff. And during my first marriage, if I just playfully went like, that, it would have been like it was on. You had hit me, you had touched me, you would, and so when I playfully did that to him, I just went into a full like, oh, what is he gonna do? I was so unsure.
And as a man, all we can do at that point is reassure the people that we love, look, it doesn't matter. I will never put my hands on you out of anger. I will never hit you. It don't matter if you draw back and hit me in the mouth. That's not me. I will not hit you. I won't put my hands on you like that. If you're hitting me in the mouth, I may pick you up and hold you until you quit swinging on me, but I'm not going to hit you, And that, well, as you were saying, that level of trust that you have to have, as it grows, the healing grows. And as the healing grows, you think in your relationship, oh, well, we're past that now. But you're really not. Something's going to happen at some point throughout your relationship that triggers something from those time periods. They're too traumatic, and they're too deep set and ingrained in us from that kind of an experience that we can just completely do away with them. So if we truly love our spouse, one, we have to recognize those things in each other. She recognizes things in me from my baggage and in my past, and I recognize things in her, and we don't shove it under a rug. We go ahead and address it. We go ahead and, we don't make any big deal out of it, but she may tell me, hey, I'm not your ex.
Mm.
And that's a reminder to me to open my eyes. I've got somebody that really cares about me now. Don't assume she's going to make the same mistake somebody else did. Sorry.
Yeah.
I talk too much.
No, I think everybody has to overcome that when you have had bad relationships, no matter what level that you're dealing with. So I know one of the best things for us that worked was definitely, like you were talking about, Gary, giving each other permission to walk away. There's people who think we're really weird because, like, he's a truck driver, so he's only home on the weekend. And if we get into some kind of a disagreement on the phone where it starts to get too heated for either one of us, we agreed that we just will verbally say, look, we can't talk any further.
Got to go for now.
We got to go for now. I will call you in about an hour. Yeah.
But then we do.
But then we do. Yeah.
It's never okay, I'll call you in about an hour, and then you don't hear from them for a day.
Right. We never do that.
No.
But to be able to do that, to be able to stop in the middle of it before it gets too heated. Like, I'm getting way too angry about this. Yeah, I've got to go. Before I say or do something. She has a harder
time with it than I do. I'm just calm and cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the awareness of when it's like getting there and you're like, I love my husband. I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to trigger him. So I need to put I have to control. And I'm going to be honest, last night, as Jim said, those triggers keep going. And I was actually triggered by my husband last night, and that's very rare. It wasn't even his fault. We went to go get food with our kids. He saw a woman he knew from a long time ago. That was a family friend. I did not know who she was. And he ran out to talk to her and just like dumped all the stuff that was in his hands and ran out. Well, in my head, I'm standing there with my children. I'm retreating back to my ex of how he would just go out to talk to friends or other, and I'd be in a store waiting with my children, looking like an idiot. Today, I didn't have a wallet, I didn't have money, and I'm like, when is he going to come in? And the first thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to go and tell him about life in front of those women. I wanted to, but I had to start centering myself and going, he's not, he doesn't know what he did, he didn't know what he did, he didn't know what he did. And I had to keep talking to myself, because he even noticed when he walked into the gas station,
I knew.
he knew
I knew.
he knew there was something off about me. And I
Yeah.
had to keep saying to myself, he did not know what he did. This was not intentional. He is not a bad man, but you will always work. And I think that's the consistency I always have to kind of go in my head. I don't want to hurt his feelings. He is not my abuser. So I have to make sure to check
But-
myself at times too, as when I'm triggered. Because I
And
do. I want to react the way I reacted sometimes with my abuser.
And that's where I gotta reassure her, where it comes with the reassuring. I'm not leaving you. It's like, I don't think there's any woman out there that can put up with me. You know?
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
and you
It's
you've
not
got
true.
I,
my biggest thing is I gotta reassure to her. She's my wife, and I'm always gonna respect my wife. And I told her last night, I talked to Amanda, I don't have to talk to these people. If that triggers you and you don't like it, I won't do it. I respect my wife. I respect my wife. I respect her grounds. I respect her triggers, and I understand, and I'm very empathetic when it comes to that, because that's the biggest thing. When you show no empathy, you know, that doesn't give reassurance or security to the person that has the triggers. And it is the biggest thing of understanding, okay, she's not upset at me, she's upset at the situation. That's another thing where I told you that they're going to be upset at the situation, but not necessarily directly at you. It was just a trigger, and it was like she said, the way she described it to me was, it was a mirrored image, and I could just see him. And I was like, Amanda, I am not him. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm not going to talk to other women if you're not okay with it. I was saying hi to a family friend. I explained everything to her, and I reassured her that there was nothing there. But I knew right away that there was something wrong, and it was just the way that she was acting at that moment. And like I said, lethargic. She gets really lethargic when she has a trigger, and she doesn't say nothing. She gets very quiet. And there's times where she wants to be boisterous, but she keeps telling herself, "Okay, this is scary. This is scary. He told me before, he ain't gonna leave me. He ain't gonna hurt me. He ain't ever gonna leave me." And I've never raised a hand on my wife, and I never will. I told her the same thing Jim said. I said, if you want to punch me until you can't raise your fist no more, then go right ahead. I am not going anywhere, and I will never retaliate and come after you.
I would never hurt you.
And my biggest thing is I always take my big old arms and wrap them around her, and I hold her as taut as I can, and I let her know it's okay. I am always going to be here, assuring her that it's going to be okay. Because me telling her, like some people, they don't understand what you guys go through with your triggers, and they're like, okay, what's the big deal? Why are they acting? You can't be like that with anybody that has trauma. You just gotta let them know that you're there, and no matter what, you'll always be there, and you gotta let them know that they're loved. That's the biggest thing.
got a question for you because it never dawned on me. Before me and her got married, I would look at women that were in abusive relationships and think, why do they keep going back to him? They must be dumb, or they must not be all there mentally, or something's wrong with them. And I wasn't being ugly. I just truly did not understand why a woman would go back over and over again. And when me and Tara got married, when her ex abused her, it wasn't a one time thing. He had abused her for a long period of time, and she stayed. And I asked her, why? Well, she started telling me about her kids and what happens if me and him get a divorce and the courts say they have to go over to his house for the weekends and I'm not there to protect them. It clicked in my head. We got to realize that men and women, a lot of times, we speak such a beautiful language with each other that it's wonderful. And at the same time, we don't even speak the same language sometimes. the way we think, the way we're made up. What would you do if some guy tougher than you come up and kicked your backside? You don't go around him anymore, you know? Or if you don't go around him, if he's got something precious to you, like control over your kids, then you figure out how to take him out. As a man, that's how we think. As a woman, the woman thinks, well, as long as he's hitting me, he's not going to hit them. Was it like that for you? Did you? I mean, was I just that dumb, or?
Well, I wouldn't say that it was dumbness or anything like that. It's simply just not understanding. As a man, we're a very humble man, and we won't admit when we're sick or when we're having a bad day. We tend to take and tough it through and do it the best that we can. And when we look at a situation of somebody else that isn't us, we're like, well, what were you thinking? Why are you going back for them?
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is that's not stupid, Jim, by all means, because that's how my mindset was, especially a child that came out of child abuse and where, the father was aggressive to the mother and vice versa. You tend to venture away from those thoughts and you tend to get back to what would be considered normal, where you're like, why are they going back? But understanding and reflecting back to what I've witnessed through the years as a child, and then coming back to what's going on and what's relevant now, and understanding that sometimes the abuser can't leave because there's fear. There's fear that if they do leave,
You mean the victim?
well, I mean, there's fear if they don't lay the abuser, that they're never going to get out, and it's never going to be better. They're never going to get away from it. And that's like I had to reassure Amanda when she left John. He was calling here all the time. I had to assure her, okay, listen, he is going to take and test me to every bit as far as he can test me, and I got to show him that I'm the bigger man. And I'm the bigger man, and I'm not going to stand for anybody to mistreat my wife or my children. And understand that she was one of those abuse victims that could not get out. She felt unsafe. She felt insecure. There was times where she mentioned to me that she went places to be safe, to be away from him, and then she ended up right back at him. Oh well, Amanda, I've changed. I made this better. I made that better. I noticed with somebody who's abused a victim, manipulation is the biggest thing. And
It is.
you know when me and Amanda were together, I noticed that her abuser used to do that to her, and she would look off like she was going into bad habits again. I told Amanda, I was like, listen, you're not alone here. He's talking to you. He's saying all these things. He's talking about how he wants to be a changed man. He wants you back. He put up a very, very solid fight with me. And, for many years, I had to take and, sit back and just kind of like hide in the shadows and watch, because I'm like that protector. I'm like right there, but the other person doesn't know that I'm right there. And when I feel that my voice needs to be heard and I need to be known, and I speak out and I let them, okay, you can't be doing this. And, I had to take a couple times and make it aware to Amanda. I said, no matter what he says, I said, you got to understand, you're going back to your old roots where, he would take and tell her one thing that she would want to hear. And she wants to, know that he's changed and he's getting his life back together. And he just plays it like a fiddle. And the biggest thing is just trying to make her aware and let her know, no matter what he says, Amanda, I'm the man who is here for you. I am the man who's taking care of your kids, and I am not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to leave you, and I will fight for you until the end. And that's going to be it. There's never going to be a change with that. And that there alone, Jim, that's the hardest thing for somebody who's being abused. And like I told Tara, where you got two different traumas, even though if you went through a trauma and it wasn't nothing related to that person who was in a relationship, it was a child abuse, it's hard to relate that. So you're gonna ask yourself naturally, why do they keep going back to this guy? But truth be told, once I met Amanda, I learned sometimes for most victims, they just can't easily get out of situations. And sometimes those who get out of situations, more situations follow them.
I've
And
had
it's
to learn
like,
that.
Yeah.
and the biggest thing is the situation sometimes can be more sporadic later than what it was before. It can you never know when it's going to come. And the biggest thing is just being ready and knowing and be like, okay, when this happens, I need to be the knight in shining armor. I need to be the man that I was originally and will always be to my wife. It's a big difference when you get married to somebody that has trauma like that. It's just understanding, I get so aggravated now, Jim, when I do hear somebody say, why does this person keep going back? Well, you don't know the whole situation of what that person is going through, you know? And it's like now that you and I have lives that've been through trauma, we're able to understand and get the realization of why they couldn't leave or why it was hard. Because if they left, then they were being stalked, and then they were being harassed. They were getting phone calls and messages, letters, all kinds of stuff, just saying how they changed, or it was saying, "Why did you do this to me?" or "You made me do this. I'm in jail because of you." And it's like, no. I told Amanda, this is not your fault. And, people are responsible and gotta be 100% responsible for their decisions and their actions. And I'll be darned if I'm gonna let somebody else blame my beautiful wife for their bad decision making.
Amen, brother. I agree with you 100%.
Well, and it's so much more than one particular thing for any person who's usually in an abusive relationship, because I tell people this all the time. I grew up with some childhood trauma as well. So underneath, I felt always like that scared little girl who deserved everything. Everything he told me, I heard, younger. You're not as smart. You're not as pretty. You're not as this. You're not as that. So that was normal. That part of our relationship I felt was normal because that's kind of where my childhood was. But you also get those time periods, and I don't know, AJ, if you experienced that, but I actually had a time period with him that we went to counseling and he got on medication, and there was like a year and a half out of the 13 years of marriage. It was really great marriage, actually. The kids would even tell you that he was a good dad, he was a good husband, and then he came off that medication and he was 1,000 times worse than he ever was before. And yeah, that's when you really become scared. That's when I was really scared for the children, that I just couldn't just walk away, because he was, before it was a lot of emotional with some physical here and there. But after he came off the medication, it was, wow, it was a different monster to deal with. So it was like coming out of the frying pan and into the fire kind of thing. Yeah.
I agree. We did have a moment of time, and this was when he had to do counseling. It was mandated, but he had to do counseling, anger management. And he was actually trying to better himself. It wasn't a year, it was a couple of months, but it really was like he just really seemed to take seriously what we were doing. For the first time in our relationship, he put me on social media and put that we were like, I mean, like I almost fell to the floor. We were together for like 12 years, and he never said that we were together on social media. But then within a couple months, that's when his arrest happened and everything kind of blew up. So it was like the fall was so much greater.
Mhm.
Like it was just once everything, and he went back into that habit, he went back hardcore to the point where it just blew up and everything. It was just not sad. Um, but I can say, like, it was just hard because I was even talking to him yesterday, to Gary, about it yesterday. When you're in those relationships, you have your high highs and then you have your low lows. So when you're sometimes in a new relationship too, you question those high highs and low lows, and you question those fights, and that's when you really have to say, okay, this is what's healthy with this and what's not healthy with this. And that's where, it's still a daily struggle for me at times to be okay, is this healthy or is this not healthy? Is this, because you are always, as an abuse victim, you are always questioning yourself in that relationship. And when you're in it for so long, so people don't realize too, is that there's parts of your brain that stops working and you are just in flight or fight mode. So your rationalization of saying this ain't normal, this ain't healthy has been gone for a really long time for that thing. All she knows is survival.
Right.
You know, that's the thing. It's, you know, and again, as you guys said, like Tara, you didn't always have like the most healthiest childhood. So when you don't have good role models growing up in healthy relationships, and your first big relationship is unhealthy, yeah, it's gonna be hard to leave. It's gonna be very hard to leave. And some of these women continue to find these relationships that's all they've known since they were children. You know, I was fortunate enough to have good boyfriends prior to my abuser. So I did know in my heart I'm capable of being loved. But some of these women don't know that either.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I used to tell her when we were dating all the time, nobody can truly love anybody else until they start loving themselves first.
Right.
And you know that is so true, because when you're in those relationships where you got some idiot coming in and demoralizing you, abusing you physically and emotionally, and making you feel like you're nothing, you know, it's hard to truly love yourself. So part of getting out of that kind of a relationship is first coming to the point that you do love yourself again, because you got to have that before you can give yourself to somebody else. And that's what relationships and marriage, even a friendship, you're giving yourself to somebody else as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, why would you give them something that's not worthy of love? You better figure out who you are and what you are to be able to heal on your own. Tara can help me heal, I can help her heal. But when it really comes down to it, our healing is something that comes from inside. You know, we can use each other as a tool to accelerate that healing. But if I heal, I'm doing it myself from inside. If she heals, she's healing herself from inside. Now, it's wonderful to have good, supportive people around you.
Mm-hmm.
You need that. You really do. But the truth of the matter is, you've got a responsibility on your own to create that healing. And once we embrace that and discover the love that we can have for our own selves, makes it so much easier to love and respect those around us.
I agree.
100%, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Because if you don't respect yourself, you're not going to respect other people.
I hear you. And Tara can tell you I can be long-winded, so if I talk too much, she'll elbow me. You'll see her little shoulder move.
I have a talker over here too. I grab his leg. I grab his leg. I have a.
I'm definitely a little Jim.
Yeah, Missy said that one day. She goes, "That's it. That's Jim Woodley Jr." We were laughing.
Oh, that's funny.
You know, it's crazy. I mean, we've done so many different things together, and people look at us, and people that have known me all my life look at us and they're just amazed, because we don't have this hierarchy of this is what you do, this is what I do. We've got some things that she normally does, but we didn't set out and make a list. This is what I'm going to do, this is what you're going to do. We help each other constantly with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in doing it that way, especially with somebody who has been through the type of abuse that can demoralize, it shows a level of respect for each other. I mean, she was amazed when we first got married that if she went and bought something and I'm out on the road and then told me about it, she was always so careful about, oh, I spent this, and I went and I spent this. And she very rarely would buy anything for herself. But when she did, she was just shocked that I was like, oh, good, you should have bought more. You know, because I mean, she was so careful with what she spent that she'd spend on everybody but her.
Mm-hmm.
And it took forever to get her past that point. Now I've created a monster, but She'll get better.
I'm working on it still, Jim. I'm working. I have the same struggles, but
I'm just playing with that.
she does not have a problem putting money out for the children. And she's always like, Gary, you need to. I said, I don't need nothing other than my wife. And I was like, I tell her all the time, I said, Amanda, you like it? Get it. No, I don't know. I said, too late. I'm going to make it for you. I said, I'm going to put it in the cart and you're going to buy it for me. She said, well, you don't like that kind of stuff. I said, no, I just got to tell you that so that way you buy for yourself. And she buys it, but me and her, we go through that a lot. I'm working on it, Jim.
Well, and it's helping to learn each other and learn each other's love languages. One of the things that I tell couples, younger couples, especially when I talk with them about, I definitely knew I had made the right choice in my marriage when, in just talking to him, I was telling him about my grandfather. Like I said, that's my adult male role model father figure, and literally I had made up my mind the next time I got married I was gonna pick somebody just like him, and my whole family went, oh my god, Jim is just like our papa, and I'm like, yes, I know, isn't it great? But I would tell him about my grandpa and go, one of the best things I always loved was he was always home for dinner. He always automatically had everybody get the dishes together, and we all did the dishes. My grandmother did not do the dishes because for him that was respecting her and the meal she cooked for the whole family. And that I thought that was the most beautiful, loving thing because of how he would put that and say that. And so all of a sudden Jim started like implementing that and going, doing the dishes and going to do the dishes whenever I cook, and he still does that to this day. And I tell young ladies, that's the sexiest thing I have ever seen in my whole life is him do it, because he did that out of wanting to show me that he loved me on the level that I see love as, which is doing dishes.
And it doesn't have to be that. There's something special. Mm-hmm. She does special things for me.
Yeah.
Daily basis. Mm-hmm. But there's something special each person can do for the people that they love and care about. It's got to be there. What she calls a love language. Mm-hmm. That has to be there. How great things can or can't be in the bedroom really doesn't matter when it comes to love. The actual love comes from the heart. And I mean, what kind of sacrifice would I make for my wife? I mean, if you or would you make for me? Mm-hmm. If you really narrow that down and think about it, would you give all for the person you care about? And if you would give all for the person you care about, then that whole idea of somebody hurting them or abusing them in any way is so terrible to you that you can't even hardly put that in your mind to think about. Because that's not something that you would ever do. Because it's happened in the past, there are things that will come out, and you have to be smart enough to see those things ahead of time. You have to know your spouse well enough to identify the things that are going to trigger, that are going to worry. You don't even want to worry your spouse. And
mutual respect
and trust.
Because I've seen other like truck drivers with their wives, they'll sit there and like the wives won't even know where their husband is even sleeping that night or whatever. And one of the things I love that he does is he consistently tells me where he is, where he's staying, because if something bad did happen, I would need to know that information, where to find him. And that's one of the things that he shows me, that kind of respect. It's not that I'm trying to check on him and maintain where he is at every second of the day, but just to be able to respect one another, and me tell him too, yeah, I'm here. Yep. He's got to trust that I'm going to the store, and being where I say I'm gonna be, so.
She's usually with her redheaded and her brunette boyfriends.
Yeah, that's the cats. We tease about the cats.
Tara's like, I want to
The
clarify.
one cat's name is actually Red. So I tell him that's my redheaded boyfriend.
Well, one of them's a little bit older. His name is Smoky Blue, but he's actually the younger one of the two. So
Yeah. So.
And
but he has
every,
that smoky blue hair, like the old guys.
but in relation to what you said though, Tara and Jim, that's the biggest thing too. I always let Amanda know where I'm doing, what I'm doing, and where I'm going. And there's times where she would call me on the phone, and instead of not answering her, if I had a customer in the truck, especially a female customer in the truck, I would answer my phone, and I would tell that customer, my wife's calling me, give me a minute, and I'll pick up the phone. I'll tell her, honey, I got a customer in the truck. As soon as I get to where I'm going. Now that would be very complicated and hard sometimes because if I was going 3.5, 4 hours away, I've had to take to Massachusetts, upstate New York, Virginia, West Virginia. Sometimes those trips can be a lot longer than we expect. And when I have a customer in mutual respect, I will be on the phone. And I had to reassure my wife that everything was okay and that I would call her once I got unloaded and everything. But the one thing that we did that helps her out is we did the 360 app.
Uh-huh.
And that's where she's able to just look at her phone periodically and see where I'm at, if I'm sitting, if I'm over in Westminster, if I moved recently, tells her how many miles I've traveled, all that stuff. And it's not sort of simple mind that she's got control over me or she's got to know where I'm at and nothing in that form. She just reassuring for her to know that I'm okay. And just give her a general idea. Okay, he's moved.
It's the respect. It's just the respect of him letting me know where he is at. I mean, abusers make it so hard for certain, like for their victims to even have contact with them. Like they'll hide their phones, they'll hide their locations, so like just even have the respect to saying, honey, I respect you enough to know where I'm at all the time. As silly as that seems to some people that's in a healthy relationship, that's a huge deal for like a DV survivor, that even have an open phone that doesn't have a lock on it. And they're like, here, take it. If you need to use it, you're not, So those are the big trusting factors for me. Again, as Tara said, it has nothing to do with control. It has nothing to do with I don't trust him or I think he's cheating. It's more of just the general respect of my feelings and respect.
See, and I've actually encouraged her to look at my phone anytime she wants to. When we first got married, she would
looked
too.
at it all the time.
I read some like Facebook messages from like years ago, got heard about that, and I had to realize we weren't together or even knew each other at the
time. I don't have no passcode on that. I told Amanda, I said, I had nothing to hide from you. I said, you want to get on my phone and look through stuff? Go right ahead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just being open and being, given the general respect.
And it probably made you feel better, Tara, when you were able to look through those things and he was not getting upset with you. And he wasn't even questioning you how many times you need to look.
Women, I'd be looking for porn. I'd be looking for any excuse. I was like, no, we're not doing this. Yeah. And it was never there. And then eventually one time he said, when's the last time you looked at my phone? And all of a sudden it dawned on me like it'd been a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay, I have really matured. Good for me, because like that I was like, I feel that comfortable. It's been that long. Wow. Okay.
Right. Kind of just stop after a while because you're like, okay, I'm not finding anything, so it's not holding my attention anymore, or my stress or anxiety, so I can move forward. Yeah.
I thought about just throwing in some little stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, you wish.
Just to spice things up,
No.
There's like, no.
He's rotten. That's part of why I love him.
We laughter makes life.
Oh my gosh, so much easier.
So much easier. I mean, just little stuff that we do, joking back and forth, and she sent me a message last week.
know what we're talking
Amanda
about.
knows about
I
that.
know what we're talking about.
I don't
I
know, you
told my
want the whole
husband that
world to know
story.
about that one?
Tell them about that. I mean,
So-
because this is something she never could have done with her.
I
ex.
never could have done this with my ex.
Oh.
So he has a nickname. We call him Sasquatch. And my daughters came up with that when we first got married, call him Sasquatch. And they teased him over the years, hid Jack Links in his drawers saying, messing with you, Dad. And so we've got all kinds of stuff, signs in the yard, Sasquatch stuff. And everybody knows about it. One of my board members, Audrey, was in Oklahoma and saw a pickup truck where the back tailgate had the whole thing is done, and in a Sasquatch who's in a sexy pose, kind of like the Joan Namath pose back in the day, like a sexy, almost naked with a raccoon
Laying on his side
on
with
the
his hand
side, all like that.
Do it again.
So I texted him and I went, where have you been and what have you been doing? I can't believe you would do that and run around on me and with a raccoon, because the picture had a raccoon sitting right in front of the private areas. And I'm like, he's like, what? And he tried to call me and I didn't answer. So I texted him back again. I said, I can't believe you cheat on me like that. And you can't get out of this. I have photo evidence. And he tried to call me again.
Put on there that I posted.
Yeah.
That I posted.
That you sent.
Yeah,
you sent
that
these
I sent
pictures.
naked pictures.
You're sending naked pictures. And he's like, what? And I was on the phone with our daughter. I was telling her what I was doing. And she's like, you better pick up that phone and put Dad out of his misery. So I called him back and I'm like, I can't believe you. And he's like, what? I didn't do anything.
I'm starting to get mad at this point.
Yeah, he's starting to. I said, I'll send you the picture right now. And that picture comes out and there's that Sasquatch all like, yeah, like that. And he started laughing. I said, I got you good, because he picks on me hardcore. I was like, I finally got you back. And he was so funny, because that would have never been able to happen in my first marriage, for sure. Never, ever.
Oh,
But it's little stuff like that we take for granted. To me, that was funny. After I got over the shock that she did me that way. But to me, that was just funny. To an abuser, that's a reason to hurt somebody.
Mhm.
You humiliated me.
Mhm.
Well, me, I got back to work. I was showing it to the ladies in dispatch. I was showing them the text messages. I was showing it to my boss.
They thought I got you good, huh?
Yeah. And I was shocked to find out every last one of those ladies in dispatch said, it's about time. You really deserve her to get you.
He picks on people hard.
you got him better with that too.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, and we go along from day to day, and we never know the person beside us. Even if we know them, we never know what they're truly going through unless we get really close to them. I'm out on the roads. I run into ladies at different warehouses that are working in different places, and have been amazed since Tara started with BTSADV. Actually, since Ashley was killed, I started wearing the pins from the Ashley Patience Project at that point. But the responses I would get from some of the ladies out there that just really floored me. I mean, when that time period came about, Tara had young ladies from all over contacting her. These are people that we'd known, young ladies Ashley's age, that were contacting Tara saying, I have been abused. And it just floored me that there were so many of them out there. This isn't a little isolated incident that's going on. It's not something you can sweep under the rug like so many of our politicians try to do. It's not something that you can just say, okay, this is the fix. There's no one single fix. And the odds are it's possible for somebody who is an abuser to have a quote quote enlightenment and be healed, but it's not common. And it's not realistic to assume that somebody who is abusing a man or a woman, or whatever they're doing, if it's abuse, physical or emotion, it's not realistic to assume that it's going to stop. What is realistic is to assume that you need to put out whatever it takes to give that person the ability to get away from that abuser. Because the alternative in the end, my daughter faced, and that's death.
Mm-hmm.
And that's terror.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I couldn't save her from, as hard as I tried. So, I've got to plead to anybody that might be listening to this. If you are with an abuser right now, there are decent men, there are decent women out there. They're not easy to find, but they are there. Run. Don't walk. Run from that abuser. Get away. Don't stay until it's too late.
Yeah, and there's good relationships to be had out there. So, you don't have to stay in the one that's hurting you. So, did you guys have anything else you want to add before we conclude this episode?
No, I think
we're good.
Y'all are pretty wonderful people. Thank you.
we think you were great.
Thank you.
You guys are wonderful, and I'll tell you, if you guys lived closer, we would definitely have to come and visit you guys.
Oh yeah, sure would.
I hear you.
Well, we're going to conclude this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. Please check us out at our website, www.breakthesilencedv.org. We have a store there where you can purchase merchandise for Through the Eyes of Survivors to help support the organization as we try to continue our programs for survivors so that they can become thriving, healthy people within our community. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time.